All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Warren Sharp writes the most interesting article every year on the rest disparity that exists with the schedule. And he's highlighted how the it's going the wrong way and the league's getting more and more greedy and caring less and less about their teams and players. And we're going to talk about that and how the 49ers are probably the most screwed over team when it comes to the schedule this season. We'll get into that next. First, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out there in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Pig and a Pickle. Go say hi to Damon and Mary, get some brisket, and tell them that Larry Krueger sent you. All right. Warren Sharp writes some really interesting stuff on the NFL. And he's got an article out right now on the net rest advantage and the net rest disadvantage of the latest 2024 schedule. And the 49ers have the number one largest net rest disadvantage in the last decade. And it's the sixth largest disadvantage since 1990. The 49ers are minus 21 days as far as net rest disadvantage. That means that their opponents have 21 extra days of preparation than the 49ers do over the course of the full season. And that's huge. And to put that in perspective, the Ravens on the other side of the spectrum are plus 16, while the Niners are minus 21. That's a 37-day swing in rest edge that the Ravens have that the 49ers do not have. And to put that into perspective, we're talking about a sport whose season goes 4 months from start to finish. One team, in this case the Ravens, has over 1 month more days of rest edge than another team in a sport that's supposed to be equal, supposed to be fair. And this is going the wrong way because they're making more and more decisions based on, their money and the great matchups and less about the rest disadvantage. They're caring less and less as time goes on. The 49ers have the number one largest net rest disadvantage, minus 21 days in the last decade. And the sixth worst net rest disadvantage since 1990. I mean, that is amazing. And the 2024 NFL schedule features a schedule in which there are 101 games played out of 272. So 37%, where one team has a rest advantage over their opponent. That's the most in NFL history. So it's not like the NFL has this problem and they're trying to do something about it. They really don't care anything about it. The NFL has been getting worse at trying to make the schedule fair and equitable over the last several years. After not scheduling 3 games in 10 days for any team over the last 5 years, the NFL now has scheduled this scenario for 9 teams this year. Why? Because they don't really care. They are sacrificing schedule equity for TV ratings and revenue. And it just kind of goes to show they don't care about the sport being equal. They care about the sport being profitable. So they want the best matchups, as many of them as they can, and they're gonna manipulate the schedule any way they have to make sure that they get the TV matchups that their sponsors want, that their fans want, and thus they'll sacrifice, the fairness of the schedule for those ratings and for that revenue. So they're trying to maximize viewership. They're trying to maximize fan interest. And unfortunately, in an ideal world, they would be minimizing these competitive inequities, but they don't. They don't seem to care about that. A team with the number one largest net rest edge, the Ravens, plus 16 in Warren Sharp's database history, which dates back 35 years to 1990. He thinks it's the largest in NFL history. So the Ravens have a 16-day advantage as far as rest on their opponents for the year. And the Niners are on the other end of the spectrum. So A team with the number one largest net rest advantage, minus 21 days in the last decade, and the sixth largest since 1990, is this year as well with the Niners. And the Niners also had the number one largest net rest disadvantage, minus 20 last year. So it's now back to back years of having the most brutal net rest situation in the entire NFL. And where's the equity in that? I mean, it doesn't seem like anybody really cares that the burden of this is being carried by the same team 2 years in a row. And that's where the 49ers are. So it really is interesting when you think about it, where they're at, that now you could have this kind of a disparity in rest between two teams that are contending for the same Super Bowl. I mean, you could make an argument the Ravens have a much better chance to go to the Super Bowl and to win it this year. And the one thing that you can say definitively when you read the Warren Sharp piece here on this is that it's trending in the wrong direction. The 2023 schedule notably put less emphasis on all these rest factors than they did in 21 and 22. The 24 schedule was even worse. And it really does. Rest matters when you look at it. If you look at the examples, the 49ers are minus 21 days of net rest this year. That's tied for the sixth largest disadvantage since 1990. Only the 99 Chargers, the 93 Dolphins, the 2012 Eagles, the 98 Packers, and the 2005 Chargers have a worse net rest disadvantage than what the Niners have this year. So, I mean, it really is dramatic when you think about the difference. There's a 37-day swing in rest advantage or disadvantage between the Ravens and the Niners. 37 days in a sport that spans 4 months. I mean, that's really dramatic. And it's not about, it's really just, I'm not saying the league's out to get the Niners. I just think that the league's out to make as much money as possible. And you would think that, the NFL moved to 17 games in 2021. You would think that the rest disadvantage situation would be better, and it's not. It actually grew in 2023, and it's now set a record in 2024 as far as the disparity in rest between the best and the worst teams. So, I mean, the Niners have the worst rest edge for the 2024 NFL season. They have 21 fewer days of rest than their opponents do. And if you think about it, you look at this situation, does rest matter that much? It really does. Last year's Chiefs had a net rest edge of minus 13. It was third worst in the NFL. When the Chiefs played with at least 2 days less rest than their opponents, as they did in 5 games last year, they went 2-3, and they covered the spread just in one of those 5 games. In all their other games, they went 13-2 and covered the spread in 12 of 15. I mean, that's really, really revealing. I mean, that's amazing. Think about it. Chiefs games with a rest deficit of two plus days. They won 40% of the time, and they covered the spread 20% of the time. 1 of 4. All other games, their win percentage was 87%, and they were 12-3 against the spread. They covered the spread 80% of the time when they didn't have that rest disadvantage. So, I mean, that's really, really revealing. It really is. And then you think of the 49ers. The 49ers went 0-3 against the spread and lost against the spread by a whopping 32.5 points combined in their rest disadvantage games last year, despite the fact they were being favored by 14.5, 9.5, and 4.5 points in those 3 games. They won just one of the 3 games where they had the rest disadvantage. All told, they went 2-2 outright and 1-3 against the spread when playing with a rest deficit of 2+ days last year. But then when they didn't, they went 9-3 in their other 12 regular season games, and they covered the spread 58% of the time. So they went 7-5 against the spread. So that's really, it matters. The rest is not equitable in the NFL. What they prioritize are their matchups and their revenue. And the Niners have gotten screwed worse than any other team the last 2 years. And this year, the Niners have historic 8 games with a rest disadvantage. That is the most games with a rest disadvantage in a season in the history of the National Football League. There isn't even a team with 7 games of rest disadvantage. You got to go back to 1998. I mean, that's amazing. And they were all 6 or fewer. The 49ers will have 8 games with a rest disadvantage. I mean, that's amazing. And not only that, there are 42 short week road games, up from 38 last year. And the 2 teams that take the brunt of the short week road games, that's right, the Bengals and that's right, the 49ers. The Bengals and the Niners both must play 3 short week road games. That's the most of any team in the NFL. So the long and the short of it is, Warren Sharp does a great breakdown, and I'll link the story in the description below so you guys can check it out for yourself. But ultimately, the teams that have been hurt by the NFL schedule makers the most in 2024 are the Bengals, the Bucks, the Colts, the Broncos, and that's right, the 49ers. So, and where do the Niners rank in rest edge? In net rest edge, 30th. And where do the Broncos rank? 31st. And where do the Colts rank? 32nd. You know what I mean? That's that. There you go. So why is it happening? It's happening more and more because the league cares. All this stuff about we care about the players, we care about their safety, we care about their health. No, they don't. What they care about most, and what the schedule shows they care about most, is revenue. And they are going to put together the best matchups. They'll pay, passing mind to, the rest situation, but they're not in any way worried about it being an equitable situation across the league, which is amazing because they've got so many rules about how much, you can't practice an extra day in the off season. You can't, have players in your facility, for 24 extra hours than they mandate. You can't wear your socks to a certain level. I mean, they have mandated everything in the NFL. And yet when it comes time for let's have a fair and equitable schedule, no, that goes out the door. And what gets prioritized is greenbacks. We must get the best matchups. We must get the matchups the public wants. We must maximize our revenue, despite the fact that our financial pie grows by the billions, literally every year. In the National Football League, you could argue, is the healthiest industry in all of America. And they say they care about their players, but when it comes right down to it, something that they control, their schedule, they ignore the player safety. They ignore the rest advantages and disadvantages. They don't care about equity. They care about greenbacks. And that's ultimately what's happened here. And for the 49ers, what do? You just grin and bear it, right? I mean, 2 years in a row, you've gotten screwed by the schedule. So it's a brilliant article. I would encourage anybody who wagers on the NFL, always know the net rest advantage between whatever team you're betting and whatever team you're betting against. Don't bet lots of money on teams that have a net that have a rest disadvantage in a particular matchup, because it's kind of the secret that nobody talks about that is a major factor on winning and losing, and the numbers show it. So once again, I'll link the Warren Sharp article in the piece, but all you need to know is that the 49ers are one of 5 teams in the NFL that have been hurt the worst by the schedule makers in 2024. And according to Warren Sharp, you can make an argument that they've been screwed over more so than any other team in the NFL as it pertains to the schedule over the last 2 seasons. All right, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle. Check them out in Corte Madera and Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week. Thanks to them. Thanks to all of you guys. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Check the link in the description. Use the promo code Krug, and they'll match you up to your first $100. And thanks to all you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.